If you're not using AI for your gym, you're already a little bit behind. That's a lie. I don't really think you're behind, but I do think you should be using it. And today, I'm going to show you some of the most effective ways to use AI as it is currently available to us. And I'll talk about some of the pitfalls and the places where if you use AI, it will look terrible and it will hurt your brand, and then you and everyone you know will die. No, you won't die, but you won't get as good results otherwise as you could. My name is Mark Fisher from Business for Unicorns, and we are a company on a mission to help gym owners build a gym and a life you love. And one way that we can do that is by leveraging AI. Now, the first thing to note, this is the most perishable video I could possibly imagine. And in fact, there should be like a way that after you watch this video, you light it on fire because all this information is going to be very perishable. So disclosure, this is being recorded the second week of September 2025, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So if you're an obsessive student of AI like I am, you notice the last few months we have seen a flurry of activity. Everything from updated models for Claude and Gemini to video platforms like Veo 3 to OpenAI's new agent mode and the highly anticipated but maybe what already rolled out ChatGPT 5. So things are moving quickly. You can trust that I will keep you updated as things progress about how you might want to use AI. And a great way to make sure you don't miss on anything is, of course, become a subscriber. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and then you won't miss any videos. So before we dig in, let's talk about why this matters. So all gym owners are time-strapped. This is just the nature of being a human. You're always dealing with a finite number of resources of time and energy and money. And it does seem like a lot of these platforms are going to allow us more and more to save time by outsourcing some or all of the number of important tasks. However, while AI does a lot of things well, there are some things that, at least to my eyeballs, look super tacky and unprofessional, and I really think have the risk of meaningfully hurting your brand. So I'm going to tell you some things I think you can start using AI for right now, but I also want to give you some cautionary tales of some things I'm seeing in the gym landscape that I don't know are sending the best message. So let's break this down. The very first thing that I think AI is fantastic for right now is editing content. Now, depending on your skill set, you may or may not be using a lot of content in your marketing, but I'm a proponent of both email marketing, I'm a proponent of Instagram captions. Now, you may or may not be using a lot of content in your gym marketing, but I think for mature gym owners, it's wise to be doing some sort of regular email marketing post. You're likely doing some posts on Instagram. You might be running some paid ads. And if nothing else, you are periodically having to share communications with your members, your clients, your prospects. And although I don't love AI for first drafts most of the time, though I'll come back to when you might want to use them, I think AI is a great thought partner, particularly because most of us don't have the time or the resources or frankly the emotional bandwidth to get feedback on everything we do. Whereas it takes 2 seconds to just drop any communication you might do, whether it be internal or marketing or otherwise, and have AI punched up for you, maybe point out some places where it could be a little clearer. And my favorite and most needed help that I fail at is just making it more concise. Less words. The other thing that AI is great about, and this is going to, I'm going to watch the YouTube stats after this, and everyone's like, that's where they stopped watching. I think program design, I'm sorry. Listen, y'all know, if you watch me a long time, I'm a nerd. I'm a training nerd. I think program design matters. I think we need to understand the loads we're imposing on a human's body. I think it's important to really understand what we need to make people do in their workouts to get given results. And I gotta tell you, particularly when you're dealing with a lot of Gen Pop stuff, I think it's gonna be pretty quickly commoditized. And quite frankly, with love, I think maybe the industry is not maybe as good at program design across the board as you might otherwise hope. So I actually think finding ways to use program design to scale or speed up your program design process is a smart move. The third thing that I like to use AI for, which I guess is maybe a version of the editing content or maybe not, is I think AI is very good at brainstorming ideas, right? It's very creative. So if you are looking to, let's say, name a low barrier offer, or if you are looking to think of maybe a novel kind of promotion for your marketing calendar you haven't run, or you want to really make sure that you are putting out the beacon in all the places if you're looking for staff, AI is great at brainstorming tons of ideas. Because of course, with any brainstorm, a lot of the game is the sheer quantity, right? And what's awesome about AI is it's not going to run out. It's going to keep going. And many of the ideas will not be good, but you can almost guarantee they will think of some novel ideas that were not on your radar for whatever topic it is that you're brainstorming options for. The fourth thing that I think AI is super awesome at, and by the way, this is the one that I think a lot of people are not doing at all, is just strategy conversations. One of my favorite uses of AI is dumping in a bunch of documents for maybe something I'm working on in one of my businesses, or just talking through some problem that I'm having and having it just be one one more unbiased, non-threatening individual robot, I guess, that can weigh in on a given strategy topic. Now, again, you have to be the barometer of if the advice is good. AI is still going to hallucinate. You can't take everything it says at face value, even though it will speak very authoritatively. But if nothing else, it just becomes one more person to join a conversation that you're having. And I think even outside of the opportunity to get some outside feedback, I think, frankly, just getting things out of your head and saying them out loud is a very important thing that any entrepreneur and any business owner needs to do, because too often you can just run around circles in your head. Now, a final thing I think you can use AI for some of the time, which will transition to things I maybe don't love so much, is I do think you can use it for some photos, okay? So depending on what your needs are, the AI photo creation abilities are super impressive, and they just have a certain sheen, a certain look right now that betrays this was likely created by AI. And in practice, you probably can use that for some things, maybe some perhaps pictures you might use in maybe a blog post or in something that's perishable. You could maybe use it for some things on Instagram. But I think as we transition to what AI I don't think is great at right now, you just have to be thoughtful that most of the available platforms, even the best ones, listen, they're absolutely, it's unbelievable. You can just write and be like, make me a picture of a monkey dancing in a Congo line, eating a pizza while riding a surfboard through outer space. That's super cool that it's able just to make you a reasonably photorealistic version of that. But again, you're gonna have the sheen, which leads to this conversation around what I suggest not using AI for. So to put a fine point on, be very blunt, my belief is that people are more and more eyes out for things that look like AI. And because part of the value that we offer, part of the UVP of being a local business, a small business, which is most of the gym owners I work with, is you're being human, right? You're the most human option available. And I think the way we will win against the onslaught of robot-like, very sleek, well done, pretty goodness in a generic way is to out-human the robots. So certainly, again, I think there is a place for using photos some of the time. I wouldn't go all in on using photos all of the time because it just looks definitionally created by AI, which I think, and this is where we're certainly getting some theory here, I don't have data on this, but my suspicion is a lot of consumers, particularly more sophisticated ones that play with these toys and models themselves, will see that as a proxy of like, oh, that's sort of like kind of weird. Again, it's hard to say that's going to light your business on fire, but if I were in your shoes, and I am, I would suggest maybe not using the photos most of the time. Now, another thing that I think AI is not particularly good at right now, but I still think you could use in some situations, is making the first draft. Now, I would contrast this with my prior suggestion. I think AI is actually a very good editor and a good thought partner if you give AI something that you wrote. However, my experience is that if you have the AI write the first draft, you might be able to do it if you plan to rewrite most of it, but then how much time are you really saving? Now, I will say, if you do not like writing at all, if you're somebody that looks at a blank page and just feels like the giant abyss, this chasm that you're gonna fall into and you just can't get your fingers to type in, well, then it might make sense to outsource this. And I almost have a way of thinking about this to suggest if you're okay or decent, or certainly if you're good at writing, do not let the AI do the first draft. Let it be a feedback partner. On the other hand, I will say this, if you are someone that really doesn't like writing, you are completely overwhelmed when you look at a blank piece of digital paper, then in that situation, I give you permission. I think you can use it for first drafts. But similar to the photos, I think we have an intuition around when something's AI. And for better or for worse, by the way, can I tell you what I'm so mad about? I'm so mad about this. You know what this guy loves? M dashes. I love M dashes. They're one of my favorite punctuations. And the amazing Rosemary on our team, our amazing social media and marketing associate, she tells me I can't use them anymore because if you see things like M dash or the word delve into it, AI has created these very predictable patterns of speech that make it clear that it was written by AI and then again, hurt credibility. I think there's something about it for most consumers most of the time, this is the hill I'm dying on over here, that makes them off-put and feel not as trusting of a brand that is not written by a human being. And that leads to the final thing that I don't think AI does great at, which I think I've been dancing around this whole video, is look, it's just not able to create connection right now. It can't create human connection. That's not to say there's not real value. And listen, I think things are changing fast and furious out there. I'm not gonna lie. What I don't think I can do is give you any sense of timeline, but what I can tell you is in the near future, things are gonna keep changing fast. Even some of the concerns I mentioned as far as the AI sheen, I think eventually it's probably gonna go away on a long enough timeline. And my hot take, step on up for my hot take, where I think things will really start to shift for gym owners is very specifically when we have true AI I first lead follow-up, including but not limited to actually making the phone calls to prospects. So this is a big piece of gym owner life. I've done a lot of videos on this. I've talked about this a lot, but just following up with people that raise your hands can be very, very time intensive, particularly if you're dealing with cold leads from a paid digital platform. And it gets very tedious and it's like boring, it's not always fun, and then if you try to outsource it, it's a very specific skill to get somebody on the phone who's sort of lukewarm and convince them to take the next step. And I don't know if you've played much with the voice-to-voice features of some of these apps, but I gotta tell you, they are really improving quickly, and it is my strong opinion that at some point, again, I'm not even gonna tell you timeline because I don't know when, they're gonna come in and they're gonna replace that function. And it's gonna be cool in some ways for you short-term because it's going to remove the requirement of you or your team to do a task that's very important and very tedious and is rarely done as well or at the volume that is necessary to get the best results. And I don't know what this means for our society, y'all. It's above my pay grade. I'm just a gym business guy over here, okay? And I'm a little concerned about a world where it is robot on robot combat. But by that point, listen, maybe your robot is answering the phone and having a debate with this other sales robot that's trying to convince you to come in for a sales consultation. Now, as a final thought, listen, I am actually pretty positive about gyms in general. I think brick and mortar gyms are going to withstand the onslaught of our oncoming robot overlords better than a lot of other industries. And I think there's a few reasons for that. First of all, I think people will still like to leave their house for a lot of fitness stuff. Now, not always. There's obviously a lot of great online platforms and even tech products where you can work out in your home. I think that's great. I think that does work for a lot of people. And a lot of people want to go somewhere they work out. And then once you're there, I also think it's going to be on a much longer timeline before we can really replace the eyes of a coach who can watch you and tell you how to do exercises and give you feedback. Again, are we going to see some platforms that can do some of that sooner rather than later? Probably. And my suspicion is to do that really well is going to take a little bit longer. And frankly, by the time that's happening, society's transformed in such kind of profound ways that everything is shenanigans because we have gone through the event horizon. And finally, this is a fun hot take here. In the second week of September 2025, I believe in the new world, people will place more and more of a premium on something I've always said is that people don't want to work with businesses. They want to work with humans. And to the extent that you can be full human, you can create a real connection, real community, an opportunity to really care for other individuals and help support them in doing the hard things that are required to achieve better health and fitness. I think that's going to be a very valuable thing to offer. I think people will be willing to pay for a premium for it, even when we're well into the dawn of the advent of the age of the robot gods. And I don't know about you, but it makes me excited to hopefully still be helpful and frankly, hopefully still have a job. As always, if you want a little bit more help dealing with the onslaught of artificial intelligence coming your way, I'd love an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about how we help gym owners build a business and a life they love. If you want to find out more about our coaching group, or you're a non-joiner person and you just want to buy me for a day or a half day, I can be bought. The first thing to do there to find out more is go to go.businessofunicorns.com/brainstorm, or you can click the link in the description box below. So before I send you off into the rest of your day, I have one final pro tip for you. One other thing that I recommend doing if you haven't done it yet, because this really changed my relationship with AI. So we talked about a lot of specific things you might do at the gym, but maybe my strongest recommendation is for you to get a feel for what these models can do. You just have to start using them and you just have to make it a daily practice. Very specifically, my suggestion is if you haven't done this yet, I suggest download the model of your choice, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, you decide, download the model of your choice on your phone, pay for the upgraded platform. You don't need to do the most expensive one, but don't use the free one, buy the premium one. It's not that much money, by the way. And then I want you to start playing with voice to text. I do think it's valuable to chat back and forth, and certainly I do a lot of that with ChatGPT. But to my mind, the moment this really changes for a lot of people is when you can do a voice text transcription and just blah, 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 just dump all your feelings, your thoughts about anything, whether it be a business strategy problem, whether it be a tricky interpersonal thing you're not sure how to deal with, and just blah, 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 blah for as long as 10, 15 minutes, and then watch the response that comes back. For a lot of people, that's the moment that I see things switch. There's certainly nothing wrong with using the chat models as a stand-in for Google or online search, but I think these longer form conversations will help you get a better feel for what the models can do and where they're going. That's all I got for you today. If you want some more free Business of Unicorn stuff, go check out the links in the description box where you can find things like the ability to download my free book on gym marketing secrets, where you can go to gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. You can follow us with our podcast at beforyoupodcast.com. And if you have any sense in your head, you will subscribe to this channel, markfisheryoutube.com. Click the link because I want to show up again for you. I want to share more actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and philosophy.